The reflection in the mirror showed my tired face as I adjusted the lilac dress my mom insisted I wear. "It goes with the wedding theme," she said, completely ignoring that lilac makes me look pale. Typical. Not that it really mattered. Today was Isabella's big day, as always. Growing up as Isabella's older sister meant living in her shadow for 32 years. Ever since I was little, the applause always went to her. Her first piano recital at 6, after I gave up lessons because nobody came to watch me practice. Graduation, with honors, while my diploma stayed hidden in a drawer. And now the wedding of the century with Ethan, the heir from a traditional family. Our mom, Sarah, had made planning this wedding her life's mission over the past 8 months. Every time she called me, it somehow shifted to Isabella said, or Isabella decided. My dad, William, as usual, just signed the checks and agreed with everything. I moved to another state 5 years ago to get some space. I built a career, made real friends, and finally felt like I was someone other than Isabella's sister. But every family reunion kept pulling me right back into the same pattern. On our Christmas video calls, they'd ask about my work for 2 minutes before spending an hour talking about Isabella's accomplishments. I promised myself that today would be different. I'd be present, smile for the pictures, and maybe, just maybe, someone would notice how hard I tried to be there. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get access to more stories like this. I arrived at the resort an hour before the ceremony. The place was stunning, with a view of the lake and decorations in blue and silver tones. Imported flowers, live orchestra, a crystal chandelier specially installed for the event. Everything screamed Isabella. A coordinator with a clipboard approached me at the entrance. "Are you Madison? Great. Your seat is number 32. Aisle C." I looked at the number, confused. There must be some mistake. I'm the bride's sister. She checked her list. "No, it's right. Seat 32, aisle C." The bride's mom gave specific instructions. I walked over to the indicated seat and froze. It was on the outer aisle, far from the altar, behind distant cousins that Isabella barely knew, and college friends she hadn't seen in years. The immediate family filled up the first rows. Even the uncles and aunts who only showed up on holidays were in the front. My stomach sank. 5 hours on a flight, an expensive hotel, the pricey gift I bought with my annual bonus, all just to be stuck in the aisle like some random acquaintance. I took a deep breath and walked over to the room where Isabella was getting ready. I found my mom adjusting her veil while a makeup artist put on the finishing touches. "Madison, you made it." Isabella smiled at the mirror without turning around. "So, what do you think of the spot? Isn't it amazing? Why am I sitting on the outer aisle?" I asked flatly. My mom froze for a second before replying with a forced smile. "Honey, we had to arrange the seats by priority." "Priority? I'm her only sister." Isabella sighed as if I were being a nuisance. "Maddie, you know how these things work. The front rows are for immediate family." "And I'm not immediate family?" My mom cleared her throat. "Well, you live far away now, and you're not married, so you came alone. We had to accommodate Ethan's relatives and close friends who were actively involved in the preparations." "Actively involved? You turned down my help every single time I offered." Isabella motioned for the makeup artist to step away. "Look, this isn't the time for drama. You hardly ever show up at family events. You don't really know Catherine, or Ethan's friends, because you two never include me." My voice cracked. I've always been left out. But this? At your wedding? Sitting me in the aisle like I'm some stranger? I left the room with the blood pounding in my temples. In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection as tears threatened to ruin the makeup I'd applied so carefully. 32 years of being the second choice, the forgotten daughter, the insignificant sister. That's when I remembered the messages. For months, Isabella had used our chat to vent about the wedding preparations. Between complaints about vendors and invitations, she unloaded frustrations about her future mother-in-law Catherine, about friends, and even about Ethan. My phone still had everything saved, the every spiteful word, every petty gripe, especially about Catherine, whom Isabella described as meddlesome, tacky, and impossible to please, while she smiled sweetly at her at every event. A strange calm washed over me. Years of therapy had taught me about boundaries and consequences, but there's only so much disrespect you can take. They wanted to treat me like a stranger? Fine. Strangers don't have to keep secrets. I touched up my makeup, adjusted my lilac dress, and made my decision. Today, finally, the masks were coming off. The ceremony went off like a commercial for perfection. Isabella looked dazzling, of course. Catherine, the mother-in-law, cried at just the right moment, and my dad seemed proud as he handed over his favorite daughter. From my far-off seat, I watched everything like a bystander. During the reception, I picked my moment as guests wandered around with champagne flutes. Catherine was alone for a moment, admiring the 5-tier cake. I walked over with a smile. "The wedding looks gorgeous," I said. "Oh, Madison, I barely saw you today." She beamed, genuinely happy to see me. "Everything's wonderful, isn't it? Isabella and I had our differences over some details, but in the end..." "Differences? Did Isabella mention anything about that?" Catherine hesitated. "Well, you know how it is. A mother's opinion versus the bride's. I totally get it. By the way, Isabella always mentioned her suggestions for the wedding to me." "Really? I'm glad she considered my ideas." I pulled out my phone. "Actually, I have exactly what she said about your taste in decorations. Want to see?" She messaged me some very specific things about how she felt regarding your decoration choices. Catherine's eyes widened when I showed her the screen. There was Isabella calling the dress Catherine picked something a bingo lady would wear, and describing her decoration idea as so tacky it looks like a 90s quinceañera party. "There's more," I continued calmly. "She also has interesting opinions about your house, about how you plan to change the family's Christmas tradition, and especially about that pearl necklace you offered as something borrowed." Catherine's expression shifted as she read the messages. Her look changed from surprise to hurt, and finally to outrage. She gripped her phone tightly, swiping the screen to read more. "I can't believe it," she murmured, bringing her free hand to her lips. Here she says my wedding gift was pathetic compared to what she expected. And that, about my husband? I took a sip of champagne, feeling a strange mix of guilt and satisfaction. She's always been two-faced. All these years I thought it was just with me. Catherine handed back the phone, her face now set in a hard line. "By any chance, does my son know about these opinions?" "Doubt it. Isabella is super careful about what Ethan sees. She once told me he'd never understand certain things about her relationship with his family." At that moment, one of Ethan's cousins came over, asking about the honeymoon plans. Catherine tried to smile, but her voice was tense. When she moved away a few minutes later, I could see she was determined. I crossed the room, watching the domino effect begin. Catherine pulled her husband to the side, showing him something on her own phone, probably screenshots she'd taken from the messages. He glanced in Isabella's direction, his expression grim. My mom approached, beaming in her navy blue dress. "Madison, I finally found you. Are you having a good time?" Her cheer felt like a provocation after everything. "I'm having a revealing experience," I replied. "I just had an interesting conversation with Catherine." "Sarah's?" Smile faltered. About how Isabella really feels about Ethan's family. I showed her some of the messages she sent me over the past few months. My mom went pale. "What did you do?" "I just showed the truth, Mom. The same Isabella you idolize, talking about how Catherine's dress looked like it was picked out of a suburban thrift shop, and that she can barely stand the Sunday dinners at their place." Sarah grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Do you have any idea what you've done? This is the most important day of her life. And my spot on that big day was in the aisle, behind people she barely even knows," I shot back, freeing my arm. "You decided I wasn't immediate family anymore, remember?" In the distance, I saw Catherine moving toward Isabella, who was laughing animatedly with her friends. My sister's smile instantly vanished when her mother-in-law showed her something on her phone. Ethan, noticing the commotion, joined them. "I'm going to fix this," my mom said, hurrying over to the group. I poured myself another glass of champagne and headed out to the terrace. Behind me, voices were starting to rise. The orchestra kept playing, but more and more guests were turning their heads to watch the drama unfolding between the bride, the groom, and the mother-in-law. It wasn't long before everything completely exploded. From the terrace door, I watched chaos unfold like a dark theatrical play. Ethan was gesticulating wildly, his face twisted in disbelief. Isabella tried to hold his hands, but he pulled away. My mom was between them, trying to mediate, while Catherine stood a few steps back with her arms crossed. "Did you really say that?" Ethan's voice rose above the music. Answer me, Isabella. Did you really call my mom a pathetic manipulator and say you can only put up with her because of me? The musicians noticed the conflict and gradually lowered the volume, which only amplified the confrontation. Nearby guests stopped talking, unintentionally forming a semicircle around the scene. Isabella shot me a searing look before turning back to her husband. Honey, you're taking everything out of context. I was just venting in a moment of stress. Venting? Catherine interjected. There are messages here from months ago, Isabella, from before your engagement. You planned to completely change our family traditions as soon as you got married. You said our taste was provincial and that our house needed an urgent makeover. My dad appeared beside my mom, confused. What's going on here? Madison showed Catherine the private messages Isabella sent, my mom explained, her voice trembling with anger. Out-of-context messages. There's no context that justifies this, Ethan replied, showing the phone to my dad. Look at what your daughter said about my family, about my grandparents, about the house where I grew up. Isabella started to cry, her flawless makeup leaving dark trails on her face. Ethan, please, can we talk about this privately? It's our wedding. One of Ethan's sisters grabbed him by the arm. Let's get out of here, this is a circus. Not until I figure out if I married the person I thought I knew, he said, pulling away. Uncles, cousins, and friends watched in stunned silence. The Aunt Clara, always tipsy at family events, whispered too loudly, I always thought this girl was too full of herself. I think we all need to calm down. My dad tried, using his business meeting conciliatory tone. Let's sort this out as a family. Family? Isabella shouted, her princess dress suddenly feeling unbearably heavy. Madison is no longer part of this family. She did it on purpose, kept messages for months just to humiliate me on my wedding day. I finally stepped into the circle, feeling every pair of eyes on me. I kept the messages because they were the only way to connect with you, Isabella. You only ever reached out to complain, never to ask how I was doing. And even then I listened. Until today when I found out you didn't even save me a spot in the family. You live 4 states away and show up twice a year, she shot back. Because you made it clear I wasn't needed. Today just confirmed what I've always known. For you guys, I'm not really family. Catherine looked between us, a look of understanding slowly dawning on her face. So that's it? You showed the messages because you were hurt about your position at the wedding? No, I replied, holding her gaze firmly. I showed them because you deserve to know the truth about how your daughter-in-law really sees you. And because Ethan deserved to know what kind of person he was marrying. Isabella advanced toward me, her face contorted with anger. You ruined everything. Always jealous, always craving attention. Ethan grabbed her arm. Isabella, enough. You're only making things worse. Ethan's parents now stood together, watching disapprovingly as the guests whispered among themselves. The photographer, not sure what to do, kept capturing the moment. Jealous? I laughed bitterly. I spent my whole life being treated like I was secondary by this family, but I was never fake about it. I never smiled at people while talking behind their backs. You chose to treat me like a stranger, so I stopped acting like family. The entire hall fell into a heavy silence, broken only by Isabella's stifled sobs and the shocked whispers of the guests. My dad took a step toward me, his face a mix of confusion and sadness unlike anything I'd ever seen. Madison, honey. I shook my head. Not now, Dad. I spent decades waiting for someone in this family to stand up for me. That moment is gone. I adjusted my bag on my shoulder and glanced at my watch. There was still time to catch the last flight home if I left immediately. The thought of sleeping miles away from this mess was an indescribable relief. Where are you going? My mom asked, finally finding her words. You can't just drop this bomb and leave. I can, I replied, my voice surprisingly calm. I'm going home, to people who actually value me. But first, I walked over to the gift table, towering with its mountain of shiny packages and elaborate bows. I found mine, a silver box with a blue ribbon containing a set of hand-painted porcelain that cost me 3 installments on my credit card. What are you doing? Isabella yelled when she saw me take the package. This is ridiculous. Gifts are for family, I said, holding the box firmly. And apparently we're no longer that. Ethan, still visibly shaken, watched the scene with an indescribable expression. Catherine had moved away to a corner with her husband, both whispering intently. "You'll regret this," my mom warned, coming closer. "When the anger dies down, you'll realize what you did." I looked her straight in the eyes. "You're wrong, Mom. When the anger passes, you'll see what you all did. Years and years of favoritism and exclusion. This is just the natural result." My dad tried again. "Madison, please, let's talk about this. Don't just walk out." For a moment I hesitated. There was genuine concern in his voice, something rare in our family dynamic, but it was too late for conversations that should have happened decades ago. "Call me when you really want to talk, Dad. Without Mom as the middleman, without Isabella as the focal point. Just you and me." With the gift tucked under my arm, I headed for the exit. Guests stepped aside, some with disapproval, others with curiosity, and some, I noticed with surprise, with something resembling admiration. At the door, I turned for one last look. Isabella was in my mom's arms, her magnificent dress now stained with makeup. Ethan was deep in conversation with his groomsmen in a corner. The perfect party had completely fallen apart. "Congratulations on the wedding, Isabella," I said, though I doubted she could hear me from that distance. "I hope it was worth it." When the cool night air touched my face, I took a deep breath, the first one in hours. The rideshare driver was already waiting in the parking lot, as I had arranged minutes earlier on the terrace. I got in the car, placed the gift on the seat next to me, and gave the instructions for the airport. As we drove away, the resort's lights gradually faded in the rearview mirror, just like the weight I'd carried for so many years. The flight home was surreal, sitting in economy class, with the undelivered wedding gift occupying the seat next to me. I paid extra to keep it empty. I watched notifications flood my phone. Dozens of messages, missed calls, even emails. Something my family rarely used for personal communication. "Aunt Judith, what happened after you left could put any telenovela to shame. Cousin Alex, girl, I don't know whether to curse you or applaud you. Ethan left alone, at his own wedding. An old school friend, whom I barely recognized from the ceremony. I always knew you'd get your revenge one day. Stay strong, girl." I turned my phone off during the takeoff and didn't power it back on. When I landed, it was nearly midnight. I grabbed a taxi home, the driver throwing curious glances at the big silver box on my lap. "Wedding?" he asked, trying to make conversation. "Something like that," I replied. At home, I collapsed on the sofa. My cat, Apollo, jumped onto my lap, as if sensing my emotional exhaustion. Finally, I turned my phone on again. There was a voice message from my dad, sent an hour after I left. I took a deep breath before hitting play. "Madison, it's your dad. I don't even know where to start." His voice sounded tired, older than I'd ever heard him. "After you left, everything went downhill. Ethan canceled the honeymoon, said he needs time to think. Your mom is furious with you, but I've been thinking a lot. Maybe you're right about some things. I'm not saying I approve of what you did, but call me when you can." I closed my eyes, feeling a whirlwind of emotions. There wasn't any joy in someone else's pain, just a strange emptiness where anger used to be. The next morning, my coworker Lauren stopped by with coffee and croissants. "I saw the photos on Instagram," she explained at my door. "Not exactly of the drama, but you could tell something huge went down by the number of posts that suddenly vanished." As we sipped coffee on my little balcony, I told her everything. Lauren listened without judgment, nodding intermittently. "You know," she finally said, "in therapy I learned that dysfunctional families only change when something irreversibly breaks the pattern. Maybe this was necessary. Or maybe I just confirmed that I'm the villain in their story. Family stories have many sides," she replied. "You just showed yours." 3 days later, I received an email from Ethan. It was short and formal. "Madison, I'm still processing everything that happened. Isabella and I are taking a break while we decide what to do next. Regardless of the reason, thank you for showing me the truth before it was too late. I'm not sure if your intention was to help me, but it happened. Catherine sends her regards." That same day, my mom sent a long text, switching back and forth between blaming me for Isabella's dire state and demanding a public apology. I didn't reply. A week later, the local magazine that had covered the wedding of the year published a brief notice stating that, due to unforeseen circumstances, the feature on the Carlson Hughes wedding has been postponed indefinitely. My dad started, calling me on a regular basis, a first in our family. Our conversations were tense at first, then gradually became more open. On our third call, he admitted, "I think I failed you, honey. I let your mother handle everything and didn't realize what was happening right under my nose. It was the first time I cried since the wedding. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get access to more stories like this." 6 weeks have passed since the incident, as my dad now calls the wedding. Autumn was turning the leaves in my small town, and I had developed a new routine. Morning walks in the park, pottery classes on Tuesdays, and weekly video dinners with my dad. During one of our calls, he told me that Isabella and Ethan had decided to annul the wedding. He said he can't trust her after seeing how she really feels about his family. "It's complicated, Madison. Your mom is devastated." "And you?" I asked. He sighed. "I'm trying to see where we all went wrong. With you, with Isabella, with everything. Your mom still thinks you're completely to blame, but I told her we need to take responsibility." The porcelain set that was meant to be my wedding gift now found a new home in my dining room. Every time I used those pieces, it reminded me that sometimes situations have to be shattered before they can be rebuilt in a healthier way. Surprisingly, Catherine sent me a handwritten card. "Madison, I hope you're well. What happened was hard for everyone, but sometimes the truth, even if painful, is necessary. Ethan is slowly recovering. If you ever decide to visit, my door is open. With love, Catherine." As expected, Isabella didn't reach out. On social media, I saw that she had traveled to Europe alone, the same trip that was supposed to be the honeymoon. Her photos of forced smiles in Parisian cafes looked staged, her eyes missing their usual sparkle. I didn't feel satisfaction seeing that, just a distant sadness for what might have been different. One afternoon, I got an unexpected call from my mom. I hesitated before answering, bracing myself for accusations. "Madison," her voice sounded different this time, more restrained. "Your dad insisted I call. We're planning a Thanksgiving dinner and we'd like you to come." "Is it just to be seated at the corner of the table?" I asked, unable to hold back the bitterness. There was a long pause. "No, we want you at the main table where you've always belonged." She took a deep breath. "I'm not saying I understand or agree with what you did, but maybe I need to hear your side of the story, properly this time." That conversation didn't fix decades of dysfunctional dynamics, but it was a start. A small admission that something fundamental needed to change. A few weeks later, during therapy, Dr. Chen asked me if I regretted it. "I regret the pain I caused," I replied after a pause. "But I don't regret finally saying enough. I spent my whole life stifling my feelings in order to keep the peace. Now I know that sometimes peace comes at too high a price." "And what did you learn from all this?" she asked. "That families are complicated. That hidden truths always find a way to come to the surface. And sometimes, the greatest act of self-preservation is simply refusing to continue a role that's slowly destroying you on the inside." For my birthday, a few months later, I got an envelope from my dad. Inside was a plane ticket and a note. "For whenever you're ready to come back. This time we'll do things differently." I tucked the ticket away in my bedside drawer. I didn't know when I'd be ready to use it, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a choice. I wasn't the forgotten sister or the neglected daughter anymore. I was Madison. Imperfect, sometimes impulsive, but finally seen. The porcelain set now decorated my dining table, not as a reminder of revenge, but as a symbol that sometimes you have to break old patterns in order to build something new, something honest, something that's truly yours. I looked at the family photo that still sat on my shelf, taken years ago when I still believed I could earn an equal place through silent sacrifice. I smiled at that younger version of myself and whispered, "You deserved more, and you finally had the courage to demand it." Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get access to more stories like this.